All right, everybody, we got another minute or two before we will kick off today's office hours. One of my favorite topics of all time. I think I've said that every week, but this is definitely one of them. If you talk to anybody that knows me really well, they know that I love my sleep. So hopefully I don't put you to sleep during this conversation today. So if you are viewing on Facebook, we found that it is super beneficial to you as a coach or whatever role that you play in your gym if you actually join us on the live Zoom. So check the comment section in Facebook, and there is a link that you can click with the associated password so that you can join us live on Zoom. I will make sure that I go back and forth between looking at the actual Zoom recording and then also taking a look at the comments on Facebook to see if we've got any of them rolling in. So I'll give another 20, 30 seconds for folks to log on. Again, whether it is just you're viewing it on the Facebook page or if you are taking time to jump in on Zoom. We'll get going here in just a minute. See, Jessica is joining me again on Zoom today. Hello, Jessica. How are you?
I'm great. Yourself?
I'm doing good. I saw that I had a reply from you. I just haven't had a chance to go all the way through it, but thank you for being such a good student and doing some homework.
No, I appreciate it. Anytime I can get free learning, not that it's free, but anytime I can pick somebody's brain, I'm all about it.
Yes, absolutely. So I love the back and forth that we've had going. So, all right, we got somebody else joining us on Zoom. Get him in here. Brian. Brian, how you doing, man?
Doing well. How you doing?
I'm good. Where are you coming to us from?
I am at Fuel House Gym in Seattle.
Awesome. I love the kettlebells that you got behind you. Darth Vader and a gorilla.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll go ahead and get going. What I'm going to do is I'll share my screen. I've got a presentation, just of some slides that I put together. So if you are a studious person, you like to take notes, this will be easy because I try to just keep it straightforward with some bullet points. Hopefully you can take some good stuff away, but give me just a second here and I will share. And then Jessica and Brian, because you guys are looking at this live, can you give me a thumbs up that you see the slides good? Everything? Okay, good. You can still hear me okay? All right, let me make sure I don't have any questions on Facebook and we'll get rocking. Okay, so the topic today is we're gonna touch on sleep. So if you've been around Two Brain Coaching at all, heard us talk about any of the four pillars, sleep is the first one in the SEMM, or what we call the SEMM model acronym. SEMM stands for sleep, eat, move, and manage. So sleep is one of those core four pillars, and that's what we're going to go over today. So we're going to talk about sleep quality and quantity, but more specifically for folks that are working with clients in a coaching role. Really what I want to do today is teach you how you can add this pillar to your coaching toolbox. One of the reasons that I think this is an incredibly timely topic and just an important one to hopefully teach you guys how to use is because I think we can all agree as health and fitness coaches that sleep is super important. But with that being said, sometimes I remember, early on as a coach, my quote unquote coaching of the sleep component was you just need to sleep more. And again, not that there's anything wrong with that, but my hope is that I can give you a little bit more depth and breadth on how to actually make this really actionable for you as a coach so that you can positively impact your clients. So going a little bit deeper into why I think this is a great topic to hit on. Sleep is really the one pillar that you cannot escape from for more than a few days. Now, if you're a parent, you might argue with me that maybe you have sustained years of no sleeping. And I joke, but really, this is the one of the four pillars that you just can't escape from for more than a few days. All the others, even nutrition and eating, you can neglect that for days, weeks at a time. We've all had clients that they get no movement for years, weeks, months, and years. And then stress management, I would argue that that is something that people might never actually do. But sleep is something you can't neglect. Try as you might. If you try to stay up for a couple of days, you are eventually just going to succumb to biology and you will fall asleep. So from a purely biological perspective, sleep is the most important pillar when it comes to restoration. Unfortunately, and I put this into my Facebook post, kind of getting people ready for today's topic. In today's culture and society, running on fumes is really celebrated and worn as a badge of honor. However, sleep is really the only stress-free thing that we experience. And what I mean by that is any other time that you are doing something, if you are eating food and digesting, no matter how good and wholesome the food is, that is introducing a stress onto the body. When you are exercising and moving, that is stress. Ironically, when you are engaging in a stress management practice, that can even impose a little bit of stress into your life. So when we look at reducing stress, the best thing that we can do is actually to sleep. So it's really important as coaches that we communicate consistently what this value of sleep is. It's not only a win for the client, just in terms of sustainable progress that we can show them over time, but it's also going to increase your value as a coach because if we're stuck in the way of just coaching what I would consider movement or exercise, where it's like last week we talked about the 5 fundamental movement patterns. If we're just coaching movement patterns, sets and reps, drive your knees out, put your chest tall, keep your feet flat, that's just one pillar that we are focused on. And it is my mission to increase the value that you guys have as coaches. And so I'm hoping that just giving you another pillar can help you do that, because you can affect greater change for your clients. So this is the part where I talk about the Cliff's Notes version of this entire presentation. So if I put you to sleep and you wonder what it is that we went over, this is really the big picture here. A couple of things. Number one, I want you to understand what the beacon, kind of like the holy grail utopian thought of sleep is. I want you to assess your clients regularly. And then lastly, we're going to personalize the coaching education that you give them. So understand what the beacon is. We got to make sure that we're assessing our clients on a regular basis when it comes to sleep, just like we do from a nutrition perspective, a movement perspective. We got to make sure that we kind of insert that same SOP into assessing sleep. And then just like with everything else, we don't say everybody should eat paleo or everybody should be vegan. We also want to personalize what coaching we're giving to our clients when it comes to sleep. So the first thing that we're going to do is just define what sleep is and what is its function. And so I included the dictionary definition. This is just one quick one that I found on Google, where it says sleep is a condition of body and mind that typically recurs for several hours every night, in which the nervous system is relatively inactive, your eyes are closed, postural muscles are relaxed, so they're getting to the point where like we're not standing up or leaning against something. And then consciousness is practically suspended. Another one that I kind of came up with is a little bit shorter, is it's a necessary recurring biological function that's restorative in nature. It's characterized by this altered consciousness, inhibited muscle function, sensory activity, and reduced reactivity to stimuli. And I wanted to make sure and point this out because when I've had conversations with folks about sleeping before, they always point out when they were in college and they went on an all-night bender, they thought that they got some great sleep because they passed out and didn't wake up or become coherent for like another 12 hours after. So there is a distinct difference between sleep and passing out. And we're not going to get into the science and measuring the brainwave activity or anything like that. But if you do just take a really general look at what the brain activity is when you are actually sleeping versus passed out, it is night and day. Okay. Now, what about the function of sleep? So I just included 3. You could probably find more, but these are like the heavy hitters here. So sleep serves 3 main functions. First, we kind of talked about this in the definition, it's restorative. So it functions to restore immune, nervous, skeletal, and your muscular systems. So the way that I like to think of this is like rest and digest. So if you guys are familiar with the parasympathetic nervous system, it is super active whenever we are sleeping. So we're resting and we're doing activities such as digesting. So restoration is a big, big, big piece of the benefit of sleep. The second one is cognitive improvement. So this is where, if you just taught somebody the finer points of how to snatch a barbell or do an air squat or meal prep for the upcoming week, so they've learned a new task, or maybe they've gotten some new thoughts that were planted into their brain, or they kind of had some emotional component to their day. Sleep is where all of those things are kind of assimilated together and then committed to long-term memory. Okay. And then another function of sleep is dreaming. I'm not going to go into this whatsoever because I am not Sigmund Freud and we're not here to analyze dreams or anything like that. But that is one of the functions of sleep that I do think it's just important for coaches to be aware of. Before I go on to number 2, any questions so far? Okay, cool. So that's just purely the definition and then the function. The reason that I like to start here, where we're just defining things and understanding function, is because I believe it's super important that we get the education as coaches and then have that ability to turn it around and teach it back to our clients. So rather than me jumping right into tell your client to do A, B, C, D, I want to make sure that we set the stage of like, we're all working from this baseline level of knowledge. And then we can go out down the road, what we're going to do later, and talk about like personalizing maybe a prescription on how to improve sleep for one of our clients. So having said that, what I want you guys to be thinking about in your mind is, as we go through this presentation, maybe 1 or 2 clients that you work with. If it's a personal training client, if it's a group coaching client, just think about, this person might be a really, really good candidate to talk to about some sleep stuff. Or maybe you've had somebody that you've tried to coach on sleep and you haven't had the greatest luck. That would really be helpful in kind of making this super valuable for you guys, that we can work through some of these things. Okay, so we've defined what sleep is and its function. So second, we talked about in the Cliffs Notes version, understanding what a beacon for quality and quantity of sleep. So is there a beacon? The answer is, well, yes, but sort of. And this is really where people hate coaches, because this is like the politician's answer, saying that it depends, because one precise beacon is sometimes unfair to impose upon, a whole plethora of individuals. However, these are some good generalizations for people to aspire to. So the first one is, we would say, is sleeping with the sun, or sleeping with the moon and rising with the sun. So as the moon, rises higher and higher into the horizon at nighttime, we are preparing ourselves for sleep. And then we go to sleep as the moon is up in the nighttime sky. We sleep through the night. And then when the sun comes up, we hear the birds chirping, all that kind of stuff. That is what actually signals us to wake up. Okay. And I know even as I repeat this, I'm already seeing challenges just in the profession that we are in as coaches to deal with this. Meaning, if you are somebody who coaches the 5:30 a.m. class, you see that you are already out of alignment with what the beacon would be for quality and quantity of sleep, right? So now what that does for you is it makes you a little bit more empathetic to some of the challenges that our clients have, equally so. So that's number one. The second is that you are sleeping in a cool, dark room. And just to get a little bit more granular with that, what we mean is cool as in, if you're in the States, we would say 68 degrees Fahrenheit or lower. So somewhere between that 68 or 60 to 68. And then if you are anywhere else in the world that uses Celsius, it would be like 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. Okay. Dark room meaning pitch black. So no ambient light. It's funny. Last night we had a really wicked thunderstorm down here in Florida, and it went on for about 90 minutes. So of course that's pumping a bunch of light into the bedroom, and the kids were upset. The dog was upset. But what I also noticed is things started to calm down. Although the kids were in the bed with us, as was the dog, we also noticed, just the ambient light from the cable box and the light from the phone that is in the bedroom. So even those ambient lights that don't seem like a big deal when we lay down to go to sleep initially at nighttime, after we fully adjusted to the darkness, they can really make a tremendous impact. So when we say dark room, we're saying every bit of ambient light. And if you want to be really crazy, it's like blackout curtains. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about position of how we should be sleeping. This would be on your back. So I would be lying supine and then hands by my sides. Next is uninterrupted. So I don't have any disruptions. I don't have to get up in the middle of the night to use the restroom or do anything. I'm waking up, like we said, when the sun comes up, the birds are chirping with a clear head. I feel rested. And then I also feel pain-free. I've slept for 7 to 9 hours. And I was really, really deliberate in the way that I ordered this to put the quantity at the very, very bottom, because like I shared at the very, very beginning today, this was always just the one that I would default to anytime early in my coaching career when I would try to help people improve their sleeping. It was, oh man, you're only sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night. Yeah, you really need to shoot for like 7 to 9. And that's the equivalent, I've realized over time, of somebody who eats a diet that is very high in processed foods. They snack all during the day, lots of sugar, very low protein, to saying, yeah, you know what? You really just need to go paleo. And I think you should start doing that tomorrow. And we laugh because of how ridiculous that would be. Or saying, oh, you've never exercised with any sort of routine. Well, I think you should probably start coming every day and do some high intensity, movement. So that, to me, the quantity conversation is one of the last things that I'm going to ask somebody to work towards. The other reason is because I've realized like how much pushback I get from folks when I would actually coach them on doing something like that. All right. So sleeping with the moon, rising with the sun, cool, dark room, on your back, hands by your side, uninterrupted, waking up feeling rested and pain-free, 7 to 9 hours. Now, the other reason why quantity comes last is it depends upon the audience that is in front of you. So if I am in front of my kids class that has elementary age children, and we are talking to them about how much they should be sleeping, it's going to be very different versus if I'm in front of my Legends class with 65-year-olds and how much they should be sleeping. And so I pulled up this great chart that kind of gives you like this graduated idea of, everywhere from newborn all the way to like that 65 plus range in terms of what should somebody be shooting for. Now, here's an easy way to kind of put this to use. If you don't have anybody from the newborn up to the teenage age in your gym, then you can block out like 75% of this chart. And then what you end up seeing is from young adult to adult and older adult, anywhere in that 7 to 9 hour range is what is recommended or optimal. And then you see kind of above and below, it's okay, well, it may be appropriate. We've all had folks that are older, 50, 60, 70 years old, that operate on 5 to 6 hours a night, and they do just fine. So in their case, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to say, you know what, you said you're only sleeping 5 to 6 hours a night. You really should be sleeping 7 to 9 hours. So in that case, quantity really doesn't matter for them. Then we start needing to look at quality. So there's some other considerations I think that we definitely want to get into a little bit here too, is where do people live? So I'll give you a great, for instance, I work with a lot of gym owners and coaches that are up in Canada. Jessica, you're up in Canada and you guys have winter for a long time. So maybe it is dark for a larger portion of the day. And usually what that equates to is longer time spent sleeping, which ends up leading to something called seasonal affective disorder, right? So being aware of these things and saying, well, man, I talked to Jessica and she said, she's sleeping like 10 to 11 hours a night. Everything should be fine. I don't know what's going on. But if I don't know where Jessica lives and I haven't assessed the other things that are correlated with her sleep, like quality, then I'm just looking at one thing. Okay. On the flip side, I'm all the way down in Florida. And so we have one season. It is summer all year round. And you can count on the sun being up in the middle of the day for, however many hours. The same thing in what everyone else is referring to as winter time. Everything is pretty much the same just because of where we are in the globe, right? So being aware of just simply where do you live? If you're remote coaching, where do your remote coaching clients live? If you remote coach and your clients travel, where are they traveling to? Are they traveling to somewhere in the Northern Hemisphere, the Southern Hemisphere? And what different coaching recommendations are you going to have to be making at that point? The other thing is, what are your clients actually doing? So one of the reasons that older adults, that 65 plus category, need less sleep than somebody that is 18 to 25, partly because the 18 to 25-year-old is still doing a little bit of growing, right? And the 65-year-old person isn't. But if the 65-year-old person also has a really depressed level of physical activity, cognitive stimulation, and cognitive activity, they are also not going to require quite as much sleep as somebody who is much more physically active and has a much more cognitively demanding job. So you want to make sure to be aware of those things. And what that's going to do is really inform you who should be in the maybe upper ranges. So that 65 plus category, maybe they need to be in that 9-hour range. Or if they are, I hate to say it like this, like lower functioning, I don't mean it that way, but less activity, less cognitive demand. So maybe they are they're doing a very good job getting their 5 to 6 hours, and that is actually what is best for them. One final point on that is just because someone can function on the lower end doesn't mean that it's optimal. And I think this really represents a very large portion of the clients that we all deal with, is especially if you are a CrossFit style or a CrossFit specific gym. It definitely invites a lot of kind of alpha, hard charging people into that style of training. And those are the people that will wear the badge of honor, like, hey, I only slept 4 hours. Oh, yeah, well, I only slept, 3. Okay, well, I didn't even sleep. And I can come in here and crush this workout. And they may still be at the top of the leaderboard for months, years before something catastrophic potentially happens. So those are the tough conversations that we really have to allow time to stretch out when we talk to our clients, that look, just because you are performing really, really high, you might not actually be doing things optimally, but you only know that if you assess it. Okay. So next, what are some of the consequences? And this is really education for your clients as much as it is for you guys as coaches. But what are some of the consequences of not getting enough sleep? So number one that we know is your injury rate, the rate at which you will have something break on you, or you're going to tweak your back, your knee, your hip, your shoulder. it goes up as your lack of sleep debt adds up. So when you have a chronic lack of sleep, the incidence of getting injured goes up. This is just what the research shows. Okay. When somebody is deprived of their REM sleep, so REM, rapid eye movement sleep, that's just one of the phases of sleep that somebody goes through during the night. If they get deprived of that, which is where restoration really takes place, their level of pain that they will experience will go up. So, put another way, if I can improve somebody's REM sleep that maybe is dealing with a chronic shoulder injury or knee pain, if I can improve their REM sleep, we should see the level of that pain subside, because guess what? The body is allowed to heal itself. Now, if we can get somebody into that 8+ hours of sleep range, and this part of this specific study was actually done on an athletic population, we see a 20% increase in speed and a 35% increase in accuracy. Okay, so if we're hitting at least 8, if not more, hours of good sleep, speed goes up and accuracy goes up tremendously. Now, from a nutritional perspective, when sleep goes down, what happens is there's a hormone in your body that tells you when you are hungry, that is called ghrelin. This hormone actually increases. And then the other one that we would actually want to increase when our sleep goes down, it decreases my I'm full hormone, leptin. Okay, so you can see how sleep can really have an effect on your appetite and the hormones that signal, okay, Josh is hungry or Josh is full. This is something that I found super, super interesting. I remember when I first came across this, is that emotional reactivity goes up by as much as 60% in people that are sleep deprived. So if you've got clients that you can think of that are on edge or that are always quick-tempered or quick to react in an emotional way, if you take a look back at your sleep assessment that you've hopefully done with them, if not, we're going to teach you how. But if you look back at that, what you're probably going to find is that they fall into that category of being sleep deprived. And then the last one, this is a big topic in the micro gym community. Over the years, we've seen everything pop up surrounding this. If it's a Normatec boots, if it's the Hypervolt massage thingamajig, if it's what is that, ROMWOD? I got to make sure that I do my ROMWOD so that I stretch and I mobilize. These are all things that people are using to recover. One of the reasons being that if your sleep is not good enough and enough, just in general quantity, recovery is not possible. So people resort to doing these what I would consider Band-Aid modalities to facilitate getting ready for their game, their performance, their workout of the day, their life, anything like that. Some other ones that maybe I didn't, highlight here is coffee, energy drinks, too much snacking throughout the day. This could all be related back to sleep quality and quantity. So at the very beginning, I want to make kind of a neat connection for you guys here. If you haven't kind of noticed this, the very beginning, we talked about sleep being one of the core pillars of the SEMM model: sleep, eat, move, and manage. So what's interesting, why I love that model so much, is that it really sheds a very bright light on how all of these things inform and influence one another. So if you take a look at the first two things on this bulleted list here, sleep deprivation, REM sleep deprivation, injury rate and pain, those are examples of how your sleep can impact your movement. The next two, when we talk about I'm hungry and I'm full, ghrelin and leptin, that is showing you how your sleep is related and can impact your nutrition or the eating pillar, all right? And then the emotional reactivity and even, I would argue, the recovery piece show you how sleep can impact the stress management component or pillar of the SEMM model. So when the way that I use this when I'm having conversations with clients is I use how they are sleeping as a connecting point to other things that they probably understand a little bit better. look, the reason potentially why, even though your nutrition seems like it's on point, but none of your numbers are moving in the direction that we think they should be, is because of your sleep. Okay. The reason why you are chronically sore is not just because maybe you're working out way too far beyond your capability, but because you're not actually giving your body an opportunity to recover, which happens during good quality and quantities of sleep. And so I just kind of wanted to highlight that to show you guys that you can use sleep, the way that you are tracking it, assessing it for your clients, to inform and influence the other pillars. Before we go on, I'll ask if Brian, you or Jamie have any, Jessica have any questions, and if not, I see the head shaking. I'll just double check the Facebook feed. All right, we're good there. Okay, so let's get down into like the nitty gritty. How do you actually assess sleep? So there's a couple of areas, a couple of places that I recommend people actually do this. Okay, the first way that it should be done is day one at intake. So when you are doing your initial consultation, no sweat intro, or maybe if it's the no sweat intro doesn't allow you to extend your time out, maybe if it is in the first meeting that they do their first on-ramp session, you're going to ask a series of questions, okay, in their intake. So I'm going to briefly just kind of go through these relatively quickly. There's 8 of them that we use. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do you guys one better so you can actually take notes. All right. So can you see this sheet move into the, okay. So these are the 8 questions that we use. And I literally like go through, ask them, and fill this out. All right. Or I might actually send this to them ahead of time. So on a scale of 4 to 10, and we're looking at hours of sleep, how many hours are you getting per night on average? Number 2, this is super important because especially if you've got a client that has a 9 to 5 job that they work Monday through Friday, or they've got kids, chances are they are sleeping differently on the weekends than they are during the week. And you as a coach want to be informed on that. So we ask them about that. We care about the temperature in their room. So we want to ask them, hey, what's the temperature in your house at nighttime when you're sleeping? What I would recommend for my people that are not in the States, if you use Celsius, just do the little conversion in terms of like what it should be. And it's really basically from like 15 to 22, 23 degrees Celsius that I would say is most common. 4, we're looking at the darkness of the room. So pitch black, and I might have to describe this to them a little bit more, minimal lights, and then lots of ambient light. 5, what does their routine look like leading into laying down to go to bed? What are you doing 90 minutes before you go to sleep? You're on your TV, you're on your phone, tablet, computer, all the above. I've been guilty of that for sure. I've got my phone, my tablet, my TV going, and then my computer to the side of me. Ask those kinds of questions. And then we definitely care, how are they feeling whenever they wake up? Do they feel like, man, I wake up, but I just feel like I can go right back to sleep? Or I'm waking up with an alarm really early in the morning and I've got to have 4 backup alarms because I usually sleep through them, right? Or do they wake up with no alarm at the same exact time every day with the birds chirping? Whatever the case may be, just make sure that you take note of that. Pain is a very popular one that we get a lot of detail on from folks. Do you experience any pain? If so, be as detailed as you can. Oh, you know what? As soon as I put my feet down, my ankles just feel really, really tight. It takes me a little while to feel comfortable walking around. I used to be able to sleep on the 2nd story, but coming down the stairs first thing in the morning got to be too much. So we had to move the bedroom downstairs. I've definitely had that. So just understanding the history of maybe pain and the experience that people have taken to maybe get around the pain that they experience when they first wake up. And then I think this last one is related to the pain conversation, but it's just a little bit removed because sometimes we've found that people were afraid to say that they were in pain because they thought we were going to prescribe them to go somewhere else, go see a doctor, a physio, or something like that. So we added this eighth question that was really around stiffness or soreness, tightness, anything like that. Of course, common areas, we've all experienced it ourselves: neck, upper back, lower back, shoulder, ankles, things like that. So not only are those questions that I would be asking at intake, I would also be asking them at check-ins in your goal setting sessions, if you guys do those regularly. Um, but I kind of wanted to ask you two, since you're live, and I'm a big proponent of ladies going first. So Jessica, I will ask you, how do you talk to your clients about sleep besides these ways that we outlined?
So generally, I've been asking them how long do they actually sleep at night and how do they feel in the morning, but that's as far as it's gotten. So the conversation started, but it's not gone beyond that.
And then are these, because I know you do a lot of remote coaching, is this kind of part of the remote coaching? Or if you were in person, would you just do it in passing in class?
In person, in class, yeah, it comes a lot more natural. Remote, it's more at the very beginning. How are you feeling today? How did you sleep last night? Are you tired? That kind of stuff, just to get a sense of where they're at for that particular day in case I need to adjust the session based on the day.
Awesome. Okay, great. Brian, what about you, man?
Pretty similar to Jessica. This is actually like a pretty new area to me. So, I mean, if people come in and mentioning how they're feeling really tired or lethargic, then that's one thing, but it's still a pretty new thing that I'm trying to bring to the table as a coach.
Awesome. Okay, great. So I'd love to give you guys a couple more things to kind of empower you, just because if we miss out on the assessment piece, like everything else goes right out the window. And we're not trying to grab data for the sake of grabbing data, because then we just get lost in this mountain of metrics, and we don't want to do that at all. But and we certainly don't want to arbitrarily add to your load in terms of being an effective coach. So I want to make sure that we're not overloading you with, like, you got to do this and you got to track that and you got to get this app. And because doing that to you guys is one thing, but what happens when we tell our clients, all right, you got to get this journal, you got to fill this sheet out, you got to download this other app. It's like, that's too much. So I'm a big fan of keeping it simple. So some things to think about is, number one, the basics are, you got to do it at intake. So something like I brought onto the screen, that's actually, we give that sheet away in the one of the Two Brain Coaching. Actually, I think all the Two Brain Coaching courses gets that. It's a big document about measuring baseline metrics. And then you definitely got to do it with some sort of regularity and formally, just like that, whether it's goal setting, monthly consultations, athlete check-ins, whatever you call them. So those are the two, like, you got to do that. Now, any type of just ongoing interaction that you have with your client in passing, Jessica, you were talking about doing it through the app. It's obviously becomes a lot more natural when you're in person. Brian mentioned, hey, how did you sleep? All those kinds of things. Definitely. Taking it a step further, if you've got somebody who this is just a major, major pillar that you've got to address, I would start by saying, get a blank sheet of paper, and then 4 to 5 times during the day, just have them write down, what is your energy level like on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 being, I could run a marathon right now. 1 being, I can barely keep my eyes open. I wish I could go nap this instant. And then just tell them, hey, 9 a.m., noon, 3 p.m., 7 p.m., write down how you're feeling on a scale of 1 to 10. And then once a week, you want to have them give that to you. And this is as much for them as it is for you. The reason why I say it's as much for them is because really the point of this is we're just trying to generate awareness on the client's behalf that, look, I know you think that you can buffer yourself against not sleeping enough or not sleeping with good quality. But if you can show a trend of, man, your energy levels are a 4, on 5 days out of 7, that's not going to be good long term. And we just we want to have the client get that light bulb moment where they see it in black and white on a piece of paper. It's like if you guys have ever started having clients write down, just literally write down what you eat, that in and of itself fixes a lot of things from a nutritional perspective. So this works the very same way with sleep. When they realize like, holy crap, man, 3 weeks in a row, I haven't had anything in my energy patterns above a 5. Like, that is not the way that I want to be living life. Guess what? They're going to come to you to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. What can we do to fix this? So the first easiest thing you can do is just have them, you could call it journaling if you want, but that probably terrifies people. So just get a piece of paper and a pen and empower them that way. And then, so just measuring energy throughout the day. Now, what can you do on the back end as a coach? I mean, you could create an Excel spreadsheet if you use an app, but you could plot just a really basic, graph to show over 30 days, this is what your energy levels have trended like. And then as you make some interventions, you provide some coaching education for them, continue to track that, just kind of like the InBody. If you guys have used one of those, it spits out trends over time. This is the same thing here, only as a coach, you're kind of recreating it for them. Okay. So at intake, in class, or remotely, if you're working with people, across the globe, or if you're dealing with government's intervention, let's say, just to be PC and safe. And then obviously at very specific check-ins, consultations, goal setting, and taking it one step further is that journaling, or just giving them a blank sheet of paper and a pen. Okay. So we've done an assessment. We've seen some trends. Okay. Now, how do we use this knowledge and actually coach sleep? So I'm a big fan of you guys educating yourself further. And not to say that everything that we just did here today so far hasn't been education, but just kind of expanding your knowledge, breadth and depth in the area, I think is always good. If for no other reason, not to just learn like, oh, this is what I should be telling my client, but just to reinforce like this sleep pillar is really freaking important. And these are the basics that we need to talk to our clients about, because they are going to have a monumental, sustainable impact long-term. So I just dropped a couple of books that you can check out. Matthew Walker's done a great one. Jessica, you can actually talk to Mike Watson about this. He's read it extensively multiple times. His book, Why We Sleep. T.S. Wiley, he's got a great one called Lights Out, Sleep, Sugar, and Survival. And he really does a great job looking at the activities that we do during the day and what it does to actually necessitate excessive sugar consumption on the body, and then what happens at nighttime with that and how that ties into survival. And then if any of you guys, whether live right now or listening later, use Two Brain Programming, they actually integrate the sleep component of coaching into their education for coaches and clients. So I remember Mike Watson, because he does all these avatar briefs for Two Brain Programming. He was actually talking to me about some of the examples that they had put out there leading into Memorial Day, because a lot of gyms do MRF. It's a big part. And so one of the things that they did preemptively is saying like, look, you're going to have this big, long workout coming up, especially if you're down in the southern part of the country. It's going to be probably really hot. Actually, I think everywhere that I saw was super, super hot that day. So make sure that you are getting enough sleep to be fully recovered and you can give your best effort on that day. So even little things like that can really make a tremendous impact. So first and foremost, start by educating yourself further. Second, and I actually presented on this one nugget several weeks ago, but start to educate your clients on the benefits and consequences surrounding sleep. And what I mean by that is I did a presentation about, learning something, teaching it to family and friends, teaching it to one client, and then taking it to a group of clients. So this is, I learned something, and then now I'm going to take that out to my clients and start to educate them just on the benefits and consequences around sleep. And so we're not even talking like, hey, Jessica, you should do this. And hey, Brian, you should do this to improve your sleep. It's just, hey, did you know? And so a lot of the education that we do in the early stages with coaches is give them that statement, hey, did you know this? And go from there. Number 3, now when you get into the specific coaching pieces, is we want to start with improving the quality of their sleep. So what I mean by that is we don't want to simply say, you need to get 8 hours of sleep. You're sleeping 5, you need to get more of that. So what we might say is you need to decrease the temperature in your room by 2 degrees, okay? You need to block out some of the ambient light. So we want to start with quality. The other piece is we want to personalize it. So we want to help them maybe build a consistent routine or ritual at bedtime. Maybe we can say, hey, I know you told me you love to read. Do you think it's possible that we could move your reading time pre-bedtime? So instead of 30 minutes in the morning time, maybe you go 20 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes before bed. One quick note on the reading before you go to bed. Ask questions around what they're reading. So like, I'll give you a very specific example. If I read anything that is remotely related to business or exercise science or anything like that, I will not sleep because my mind will be racing with all sorts of ways that I can integrate it and teach it to people and all that. Versus I got done reading last year, Phil Jackson, who's the coach of the Bulls and the Lakers for a while, he wrote his book 11 Rings, and I read that last year. And so that would be like my pre-bedtime routine, because I could read that, love it, and then I would fall asleep, within 5 to 15 minutes of putting that book down. My mind wouldn't wander. So ask questions around what your clients are reading, if they are, before they go to bed. Then personalizing it more, it could be no eating 2 hours before bedtime, no technology 90 minutes before bedtime. You told me that your shoulder has been killing you. I know you said you sleep on your side. Can you try falling asleep on your back and sleeping that way for the first 30 minutes? Something like that, to where we're undoing a couple of things just by virtue of changing something in their lifestyle. Okay, so we personalize it. And then this is why we assess, is we want to measure results. And again, like I said before, it's the KISS method. It's keep it super simple, piece of paper and a pen, and I track energy throughout the day. Start there. And then this next one, number 6, help clients connect the dots. This is like where your value as a coach truly comes in. What I mean is you need to tie it to metrics that matter to them. Okay. So like I said, I don't know if you guys caught this at the very, very beginning, if you were on or listening yet, but sleep is something that nothing gets in the way of me sleeping. And I've been like that for as long as I remember. It's a gift and a curse. If my wife was here talking about it, it's like he gets his sleep, but on the flip side, it's like he gets his sleep, and meaning there are things that maybe I should be tending to that I don't, because sleep is so important to me. So if you tell me, hey, your sleep score is improving or whatever, that's going to light me up. I think for most people, they don't really care. So you have to know, okay, their sleep is improving. Are they somebody that cares about performance? Okay, so let's now tie that to performance. Hey, did you see Jimmy, over the last month, we've worked on your sleep. It's been improving. Did you notice how you deadlifted last week? I didn't make a big deal of it, but look at this. You're continuing to trend up in your performance. Okay. If you got a client that cares about fat loss, and maybe we've seen a trend of, no progress or even maybe a little bit of regression in that area, we make some adjustments to their sleep. We measure again, and all of a sudden we see that their fat loss is trending in the direction that they want to see. We can make those connections for them so they know, look, this is something that is sustainable. Okay. And then last one, this is just kind of a special note, and I detailed it a little bit more in one of the other slides, but the information that you gather in your assessment and the results and connecting dots, you really want to use that to inform and influence all the other pillars that you are working with your clients on. Nutrition, movement, it should definitely funnel into your program design. Here's a great example. If you've got somebody who you've determined that not only is the quantity of their sleep not enough, not where it should be, and the quality of their sleep nowhere near where it should be, but they're coming in doing very high intense workouts all the time, they may be able to buffer against that for only biology knows, but eventually we've all seen it happen. They're going to run themselves into the ground. All right. So if I know that my client is not making any headway to improving their sleep, I'm going to adjust their program design, their movement accordingly. So maybe I start to have something that is going to introduce less stress to the body so that the sleep that they are getting is now enough to recover from the workouts that they are doing. Okay, this works the same way with nutrition. It works the same way with stress management. You know, if a client is not, working on stress management, if they've got a ton of stuff, issues that they're dealing with right before they go to bed, guess what? It's probably going to keep them from not sleeping very soundly at night. They're going to wake up even more stressed. So now knowing that, the pillar that I'm working with them on is going to be stress management. And I make those connections for them. Okay. And this is a chart. This is kind of like just a theoretical template I want to share with you guys that we created. And don't pay attention to the like 1 through 10 at the top. It's not like, oh, if you don't do this, you're a number 4, you're not a number 10. This is just kind of like a way for me to organize my thoughts when I was thinking about, okay, what are the things that I want to try to improve first? I don't want to say, go look at number 10 where it says, maximize circadian rhythm by rising with the sun and sleeping with the moon. Like that's not a day 1 prescription, right? That may mean that could be the beacon. And we're working towards that, but that's not going to be a day 1. This is what you need to be doing. It could very well be that I look at the room temperature. So this is just really something I found helpful to kind of say, maybe these are some interventions that I can, collaborate with my client on to see, what is the most likely thing that you are going to do tomorrow or tonight before you go to bed? Okay, can you do it the next day? Can you do it the next day? Because they could probably do that number 10 where I go to bed with the moon and I rise with the sun. I could do it Friday night, but I'm never going to do it again. But if I say drop your room temperature 1 or 2 degrees, that might be something that they can live with for indefinitely, right? So this is really just a way for, and you can plug in your own stuff. If you want to take a screenshot, or I could share this with you guys later, but you can always plug in your own stuff of what you found works with the clients that you're working with. Okay. So we went all the way from understanding like what is sleep, what's the function, then we talked about, is there a beacon? Number 3, consequences of not getting enough sleep, or if I do get sleep, how do you assess it? And then finally, how do we put it into practice? And this was just kind of like a very, elementary level conception of just some different parameters that you could potentially put into place. So what I'm looking for here is homework is, do you assess it in a formal way? And if the answer is no, this would be my first recommendation for you guys is just start here. Start with the intake process. After the intake process, you do your first quarterly check-in, monthly check-in, whatever you guys do at your gym, reassess it. All right. Then you can get into, the nitty gritty details of, okay, let's change this, let's modify that, let's connect these dots. But if you skip over the assessment piece, then you really have no idea if anything that you're doing is actually working. And you may get some great anecdotal tidbits, but you're not going to be able to show a whole lot just from a results measurement standpoint. All right. So, what questions do you guys have when it comes to coaching your clients in sleep, challenges that you've had with maybe clients that you've tried to work with on their sleep, but they just don't seem that they are going to take to it, anything like that. I just want to open the floor for the last several minutes that we have here. Don't worry about putting your hand up. You can just start talking.
Okay, I'll go first, Brian. Well, I'm gonna be honest here. I specifically tuned into this because I struggle with sleep quality. I have enough hours carved out in the day, but the quality is just not there. So I'm going to start with myself, work my way through the assessment as if I was a client, follow the habits, and then see where it goes. Usually that's what I do first when I integrate new things, is do it, then
you're the
teach
guinea
it.
pig. Yeah.
So.
Awesome. What just looking through, the assessment, Jessica, if you like, how many hours of sleep do you get per night?
Well, I'm usually in bed for 8 to 9, but I wake up a whole bunch. So I have difficulty falling asleep. Then I'll wake up once or twice during the night. And then the morning is a struggle. I feel hungover and I'm like, oh, and meanwhile, I haven't had alcohol for like weeks. So, you know, it's not that, it's just not having that refreshing. I can't say I'm sore in the morning. It's just, we got the blackout curtains, but I find I even get ambient light through the door. And so I'm sensitive to that. I did try a sleep mask, but it's always not on me when I wake up in the morning. So anyhow.
The other thing that I might add to yours is, can you remember a time when you did wake up feeling rested? Like whether it was time of year, for instance, kind of where my head is going with this is obviously the last 16 months, like everybody has been thrown for a loop. And so that could definitely play a part and have an impact too.
For sure. Yeah. And the last 16 months has been worse, but I've always struggled with sleep. This is nothing new. It's a lifelong management. So
cool. Well, yeah, I would love to see if you're open to it, to sharing, when you fill that out, if you would want to share it with me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Brian.
Yeah, quick question on the sleeping on the back. One, just like if you can elaborate like a little bit about the positions. I know that there's probably a lot of depth we could go into on that. But then you also mentioned for at least for 30 minutes. I mean, does that have something to do with how you fall asleep, like the position you fall asleep in?
Yeah, man, that's such a great one. And this is something that I've actually struggled with for a really, really long time. Just from a purely anatomical perspective, the sleeping on your back is just the best way, because it reduces the amount of pressure on the joints that people usually wake up with pain in. So, for instance, if you're a side sleeper, or actually, let me come at it from a different angle. If you have somebody in your gym that deals with shoulder impingement, and I'm not diagnosing this, I'm not a chiro or a physio, but if you've got somebody that their shoulder always feels impacted, they have a hard, painful time putting their hands overhead, I might actually ask them, how do you sleep? Do you sleep on your side? And we do find a lot of times that people sleep on their sides, right? So that's one reason. Where I discovered I was having issues, and I never thought about this until I was doing some coach education years ago at my gym, and I would wake up in the morning time and my ankles would be really stiff. I would notice my dorsiflexion was just, really, really poor. Well, it turns out I'm a stomach sleeper. And when you sleep on your stomach, if you can imagine this visual in your head, is like your feet are pointed all night long when you are sleeping on your stomach, unless you have your legs kind of externally or internally rotated. And so for me, because I'm a stomach sleeper, that was one of the reasons why. And so the reason for just saying, hey, turn over and do it for 30 minutes is because it is so hard to go from any other way of sleeping to sleeping on your back. It's just super difficult. So I'm a big fan of like, what's the smallest dose that I can get somebody to do and then do over and over. So I don't want to say, hey, start sleeping on your back tomorrow, because I know that I'm setting them up for failure. But you did kind of hit on something that I forgot to mention today is, when it comes to falling asleep, it should take people anywhere from like 10 to 15 minutes. And I actually just learned this a little while ago. So if you're somebody, I think it's obvious that if you sit there and, you know, just your mind is racing for 45 minutes, an hour before you fall asleep, I think it's obvious that's not good. I used to actually think that it was pretty good to, like, for me, I would hit the bed, close my eyes, and I was out, and I would sleep clean through the night. But that's actually not the best way. So you do want to have this kind of slow descent into sleep. So I know that wasn't a question, but I did want to make sure that I touched on that. Did that answer what you had?
Yeah, no, that was very helpful.
Yeah.
I do have to jet, but I really appreciate this. This is very informative.
Awesome.
And I look forward to also using myself as a guinea pig. So.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah. Well, let me know if I can help in any other way.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Josh.
See ya. All right. So what I'm going to do is see if I've got any questions on Facebook. I don't right now. We're right at time. Jessica, did you have anything else before we went?
No, that was great. Super helpful. And I'm going to fill this all out and I'll shoot you an email.
Please do. Thank you so much.
Okay. Again,
All right.
have a
We'll
great
talk
day.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.